Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Zatlin. How's it going, man?
Ben, I went down south, went to Raleigh this past weekend for a wedding, and yet we still got out photos from the GMAC Outdoor Championships. We still got out transfer news. I still came back and I grinded through some first thoughts articles because Katelyn Tuohy broke a record. We had it all. It just, for the love of the game and for the love of my friends, I was working this weekend, and it was a very productive and good weekend. So I hope yours was just as productive as well.
I don't think as productive, but as you can see, I have a different background because I rearranged my office, which is exciting. So if you're watching on YouTube, you get to see a slightly different white wall behind me. So that, I mean, if that doesn't keep you coming back, I don't know what will.
I am thrilled right now. I mean, I don't think you can fully understand. I mean, this is better than the James Harden shot from last night.
Oh yeah, which was equally as surprising. Um, I think we did get one new rating on Spotify. We're up to 99, so close to hitting that 100 thresholds. Apple has just people have boycotted Apple. I'm just going to go with that. No one's actually listening on Apple, and that's why we're not getting any reviews. Because I don't want to think that everybody's just stopped listening and stopped rating. So
Yeah, I
we're
don't
gonna go with
think
that.
that's it. Numbers don't suggest that, but regardless, Apple and Spotify in YouTube now. We're now adding more homework despite no one doing the other homework. Yeah, no, if you guys could do that, that'd be great. I know you don't think it makes a difference. Guess what? It does. So please do that. That would be fantastical. Um, we have a lot to get to, but also like not a ton. We have a lot to discuss, but there's not a ton of like individual headlines and topics to discuss. So where do you want to start first?
Let's start with some transfer news. And right off the bat, I think this was news that we reported a little while ago, but wanted to just touch on it briefly. Oussama El Bouchayby is headed to the transfer portal. He's been probably the best 800-meter runner in the country on the men's side across all levels. He's been beating everyone in sight, running extraordinarily fast times. So it's no surprise to see him want to maybe wade into the D1 waters, perhaps, if he does decide to do so. What was your biggest reaction, and where do you think he ends up ultimately?
Yeah, super unsurprising. He's a 145.31 guy. Like, it would have been weird if he stayed. You know what I mean? I actually thought it was more likely that he'd just go pro.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I just thought that. I mean, it's a little bit different when you're at D2, right? And you're a new guy, and the overseas market in certain areas are just not as conducive to earning contracts as other areas are for whatever reason. And so it's hard to kind of like, I guess, blame him there for being like, okay, hey, you'll really build a resume if you go to the Division 1 level. So I think it makes sense. For me, Angelo State, a D2 school, it's based in Texas. And so that would make me believe that if he wants to stay in the state, which I think it makes sense. I think Texas or Texas A&M are the most likely spots, given how well he ran the Texas relays against all those Texas guys. I
Yeah.
feel like the Longhorns may actually be favored, but in terms of national title contenders, he fits the mold and build that you would expect from the Texas A&M Aggies. So I'm really split between those two. I think those two are the leaders in the clubhouse to land him.
Yeah, I think those are the only two that you really feel have a realistic shot. I think Iowa State is always someone that we
Mm-hmm.
talk about when we're looking at 800-meter guys. But I think he fits the A&M mold perfectly. Like he could be that next like real true like star and that has gone through College Station. And obviously we've seen NCAA champions on the 800 side for Texas, but I think he is a hand and glove fit with Texas A&M.
Yeah, and I completely agree. It's not only that, but like he has so much raw fitness, like that's undeniable. But he's tactically like really solid as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if he's as good as like Wes Ferguson, the other D2 star in the 800 meters, but like he has a really good understanding of like his own fitness, how to utilize it, when to make his moves, when not to. He's strength based, so like he doesn't need to get you in the last 50 meters. Like he can make his move from 100 out, 200 out, and largely fend you off. And I just think for Texas A&M, a school like that, it kind of fits their mold. And you know, other than Iowa State, Texas A&M, anyone else who you'd be like, yeah, I could see him landing there.
I mean, Oklahoma State, you kind of stay in that same
Mm-hmm.
region. I think he would be perfect for the like to slide right into that DMR and make that a like title contender or title favorite once again next year. But they just don't traditionally have that real star 800 guy. They haven't had that in the last few years. I don't love that fit as much, but I could see them making a go for it and seeing if they could pick up some big points on the conference, on the national level, in indoor and outdoor track.
Yeah, I mean, they do have Mehdi Yanori, that
Mm-hmm.
146 guy from this year. He still has a lot to prove, right?
Oh
He's a
yeah.
JUCO guy, recent JUCO guy that came in there. But you add him in there. You understand that Fouad Massaudi is also Moroccan, so I think there's maybe that little bit of that connection there. I agree. I think Oklahoma State's actually a really nice spot, kind of regionally the same area.
Yep.
So I do like those options as well. Um, let's move off of that because that is a little bit older news, about a week or two old. Let's talk about the one that I will certainly make this as an SEO driven headline for YouTube. Um, Natalie Cook has decided where she will be attending school next year. It is Colorado. On a scale of 1 to 10, how 10 being the most surprised, how surprised are you?
You stole my question. That was going to be the same thing. I was
I'm
literally
so good.
gearing up to do that. I'm like at a 7 or 8. I'm kind of
Mhm.
surprised about like this, like just from the outside, this doesn't look like the best fit. Um, Colorado is traditionally, and I say traditionally because I mean that, and that doesn't mean that there can't be flexibility with their training. It's traditionally a very mileage driven. You're training pretty hard at altitude, and that is just not who Natalie Cook is. She obviously had to feel comfortable with whatever she heard from the coaching staff at Colorado, that she would be able to train the way she can and stay healthy. Um, but it's still a surprising fit. All that said, if you're looking for a prestigious program on the women's side, a prestigious, like as prestigious of a freshman as you're really going to get on the distance side, it makes sense that these two found each other. It just, the training doesn't exactly line up.
Yeah, the prestige, I think, is a great word for it. They match up perfectly. I was surprised. I was very surprised. I would probably put myself at like a 7 or 8 as well. I think when you kind of look at her history, there is his injury like recently as right now, and she's not doing a whole lot of mileage to begin with. So I think when you kind of factor that in, again, it's a traditional, like you said, long distance program, and I just don't know if I see that fit initially. That said, Colorado. Let's take a look at a few things
Mm.
here. NC State, assuming Tuohy comes back, is going to return a lot of women. I think they lose Marino. I think they lose Seymour, but they return a good number of women. Let's say Tuohy goes pro after this spring season, right? Could Colorado win the national title?
Who are they losing this year?
They are losing basically no one. They're losing Gabrielle Ori. They're returning, according to Tiefers, and strictly according to Tiefers, they're returning Hertenstein. They're returning Baran. They're returning.
Hertenstein still
Uh,
has eligibility?
I was surprised. That's just what Tiefer says. They're returning Covert. They're losing Caitlin Barthel. They're losing. Oh well, yeah, and that's it. So, and they return Hannah Miniuti as well, who was injured this past year.
New Mexico's losing a lot this year too, right?
Are they? Let's find out, shall we? And
I at first blush, I am inclined to say that is unlikely. Could they? Of course, like Colorado has a great tradition of
New
developing.
Mexico returns their entire top five and loses Goldstein.
I would have New Mexico ahead of them in the
Yeah.
pecking order. But they could, like, and she and Cook gives them the possibility, like, gives them a much higher ceiling. She gives them a great low stick option if she's healthy and running well. Like, I mean, and like I said, Colorado has a history of, like, churning out a fourth or fifth runner kind of out of nowhere who is very productive and seals the deal for a championship. So they absolutely could. I would still have them below probably both New Mexico and maybe even NC State without Tuohy, because they will have Tanisima. They still will have
Oh,
a
they'll
great,
bring back Tanisima.
yeah, they will still have a very, very
Oh,
good
that's right.
lineup regardless. But it's at least not crazy to have them in that conversation anymore.
Yeah. I think there's still questions about what Tanisima could do in the fall. Again, there's a whole lot of, no one really knows. But yeah, and the thing was, I think a lineup that consists of Bailey Hertenstein, Baran, Cook, Covert, Miniuti is maybe more talented than what New Mexico can field. The fact of the matter is, though, is that Covert, Miniuti, and Cook have all had significant injury history.
Yep.
You are banking on so much to happen in order for that to work out. I just like it. That's the problem. Like it's a massive like major swing one way or the other. But like Cook changes everything. Like she could give them like a fourth low stick basically. And like on paper, that is a scary lineup. But yeah, I was surprised, didn't expect it. We'll see what happens though. Like it's impressive.
The athletic trainer is going to be making his or her money next year, working with that team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's very exciting, and more than just like looking forward to next fall. I mean, they have Cook now for 3 more cross country seasons, 4 more outdoor seasons. Like they got someone, they have someone that they can build a program around for the next 3 or 4 years, which is just such a massive win, because they haven't really, like, you talk about like all those women you just rattled off. Covert's the only one that came as a freshman. Like, they just haven't had that tent pole star that has kind of come in with a ton of eligibility left. And so it's a huge pickup, not only for next year, but the years to come.
Yeah, and not only that, but like you remember, like they bring in like a really good recruiting class. Like they're bringing in the girl from Minnesota, Abby. It begins with an N. I'm gonna look it up right now. But they bring in just a handful of really good recruits on the men's and women's side. I'm looking at it now. It's Abby Nechinecki. Yeah, sure, we'll go with that, of out of Minnesota, and they also bring in Carrie Balaga as well. So that's a stacked, like maybe one of the best 1-2 punches commitments wise for this year. In fact, according to our rankings, it is. I'm looking back and just trying to see if our initial reporting does have Hertenstein and Baran with the same amount of.
Yeah, Baran I could see, but Hartenstein, I'm having a hard time. She was just at Indiana for so long.
She has 2 full years of eligibility remaining across all 3 seasons. Yep, we reported that correctly. That's correct. The eligibility stuff's so hard to get.
Oh my goodness.
All right, let's check about Baran real quick. Let's see if this is also correct. 2 full years of eligibility.
Wow.
It's accurate. It's right. Because Steefers you never really trust.
Yeah. Wait, so they had 2 years when they transferred, or they have 2
when they
years
transferred, so they still have
one more year. Okay.
And like that means like Hertenstein could be like really good.
And Baran could be top 30 name.
20. Yeah, top 20, top 30. I mean, you add that with a healthy Covert who like we think can be top 10 at her best.
Yeah.
Maybe just top 15, top 20, whatever. I mean, Cook's a 7th, in the nation.
Yeah. If they get everybody to the line, they're going to be tough to beat.
That would be scary. So, all right, let's actually talk about the people who are racing. Katelyn Tuohy broke a record.
again.
Do you want to talk about that? I mean, I don't know if there really is anything more to talk about. So
I mean, the poll that you put in our Slack before, I think Mara did, was fairly overwhelmingly sided towards she's going to break the record, and
I think it was pretty balanced actually.
Oh, really? I must have, when I voted, it was like 3 or 4 to 1. But she ends up breaking it by I think 4 seconds, right? Really not that much. What no one was really on the edge of their seat. This is what we kind of expected when she lined up.
We had 5 votes for hell yeah, brother. We had 1 vote for no, you're crazy to think that, and 3 is I can't decide. We had 5, 1, 3, so somewhat balanced,
fairly balanced, yeah.
But yeah, I don't surprise. She's amazing. Yeah. I'm really just at this point, it's 2 questions, and I framed this in the First Thoughts article. Mm-hmm. Are you going pro, and are you going to win the Bowerman? I think there was talks in the post-race interview about how she might consider the 1500, and it makes you wonder, would she do 15 5K? Even if it's just the 15, she wins that. The argument for the Bowerman is you'd have to, right? Right, because if Tuohy doesn't win this, no one's ever winning it.
I mean, it's 3 NCAA records. It is
technically 4 if you count en route 1500.
Oh, okay. And then we are talking about, what would it be? 4 titles if she just wins 1 at outdoor.
Well, they don't count cross country for the Bowerman.
Okay. So it would be 3. Yeah. I mean, it's what more can you do?
What more can you do? Because the problem is that sprinters and hurdlers and jumpers, I mean, they're hitting a lot of these. You look at past winners hit world caliber marks, right? In distance running, it's just not as easy. I mean, the disparity between Katelyn Tuohy's all-time collegiate resume versus the very top of the world in the distance running world. It's the gap is so massive just based on how general biology works in development and training. It's just not, you just can't compare.
Right.
And that's the only thing where I'm does the Bowerman understand that? I would hope they do. But the difference here between Tuohy and Cheserek is that I think the Bowerman, very clearly values marks, records, all-time performances. It's very clear that they value that. Cheserek only had one collegiate record. I think it was the mile at that point, which has now since been broken. But Tuohy has 3, technically 4. I don't know how, at this point, I just don't know how she loses. And if she does lose, there's no one will ever win. No one who specializes in the mile up will ever win the Bowerman if Katelyn Tuohy doesn't win it.
Yeah. 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 And do you think she might double in the 15 and the 5K? And because that's kind of how I took it. But because that's if she would be able to do that, it would be the nail in the coffin in terms of the Bowerman, I think. But maybe she just is more excited to run the 15.
Maybe, but also if she loses that 5K, does that hurt her? Does it? I don't know. I'm just asking.
Yeah, it could. I don't know. It depends if you're a LeBron guy who you're more upset about his finals record than him making the finals, right? I don't know.
Get that 5K on the double and yeah. I could totally see that happening. I mean, I don't think she doubles, but also if she did and she does it,
it'd be awesome, and it'd be a great way to send her out of her collegiate career. If she went pro,
if she does go pro, she said she could go pro after cross country or the summer or whenever. I mean, it sounds like it's coming within the next 365 days.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. But yeah, she's great. She's awesome. But I don't think we have anything more to add to that.
No, doesn't really change our opinion on her in the slightest. It would have been cool to see her go under 15 and have that record start with a 14. But excellent performance, and she's the overwhelming favorite in whatever event she decides to do.
Real quick, mile, 3K, 5K, rank her best events.
Ooh, that's good. I think I'll go 3K, 5K, mile.
Like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
3K, 1.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna swap. I think she's a better miler than she's a 5K runner.
Okay. But 3K is your
yeah. She's clearly the best at the 3K. She's soloed an 851 jog, basically. Like, it's the craziest 851 I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a perfect blend for her. All right, let's go to other performances. And while I guess the objectively the best performance in terms of like the fastest, it was an NCAA record, was Katelyn Tuohy's 15:03. The most surprising and maybe like the most transformative in terms of how we see someone was certainly Kenneth Rooks's 8:17 in the steeplechase, number 2 all time, and just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, obviously Rooks is good. We thought of him in that category of like 3 or 4 guys that were going to compete with Hamilton for the title, but this puts him on another level. Like, it's like him and Hamilton at this point, and everybody else, because I mean, Hamilton's really the only other person that you could imagine dipping under 8:20. I mean, maybe Wilkinson could get close. He's shown some good signs, but like, this was such an impressive performance, and I mean, really changed my opinion on him, because I just didn't see him quite as that top challenger, and now you could argue him as the clear favorite.
He's still 12 seconds behind the collegiate record.
Oh, that's never going to be broken.
It'll never be broken.
It's ridiculous.
Such an impressive record. I'm so blown away. Anyway,
it was the world record like for a while.
I was going to say that was a world record for a bit. Yeah, Rooks, and I think what the word you used is really perfect, transformative. Because you see, like, I think the argument that we had with him this year was, okay, you went to Stanford, you went to Brian Clay, he dusted the competition, right? 8:33, 8:31. By the way, someone in the comments on our last YouTube video said that we didn't mention Rooks in our last video. That's because he was mentioned, I think, in the video prior, which we didn't technically put on YouTube. So understandable, but now we're talking about him now, but we did mention him previously. Anyways, yeah, Rooks, I mean, like, he had been really good, but he was dusting his competition, like destroying it. And for a guy who had run 8:22 before, it's like, cool, this is impressive. He looks really good. Like, what's going to happen when you face a Duncan Hamilton or you face a pro field, right? Like a pro field that's like world caliber, like this one was.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out it's really good results when he races those kind of fields. Like, again, 8:17 is insanely fast. It's faster than what anyone ran last year, and that was probably the most top-heavy year the steeplechase has ever seen, past like 1 or 2 guys. And you just kind of think about, like, and you see the clips of like how he ran. He looked really good, like shockingly good. Like, no one, like, I had seen his form over the last 2 races that he had run, and he looked smooth. And I was like, okay, but let's see what he actually looks like when he's running 8:20 or 8:22, or in this case 8:17. It still looks really good. Looks awesome, actually. And listen, I think Duncan Hamilton can still win this title, but like, if they're together on the last lap, I struggle to figure out like who would beat Rooks. I don't know.
I mean, he ran sub 60 in his last lap, like being on like 8:22 pace, like, or 8:23, like, it's ridiculous. And I mean, you think about the NCAA title, but like, this is a guy who could be legitimately looking at a US title. Like, you look at the names that he beat all the guys that you need to beat. Like, you beat Hillary Bohr, you beat Anthony Rocic, you beat Bernard Ketter. Like, those are the guys. Like, and I mean, he has, obviously, you never know where the pros are in their like training cycle. They're obviously just on a different way they're training. What they're training for is different than what the collegiates are. But I mean, he's beaten big time guys. He beat Jordy Beamish, who I mean, to kick away from him and kick away from all these other guys is just so impressive. And like, we could be talking about Rooks and Hamilton being like 1-2 at NCAAs and then turn around and do it at USA's. Like they are just that good. And I mean, that's what, so I think obviously the time is amazing, but beating the field that he did in a convincing 3-second margin, even more impressive.
And that's what I was going to say. He beats that field, not just by like, oh, he got him by a second, 3 full seconds, which in that kind of field is big time stuff. And also, like, by the way, we're in May, like we're approaching, it's May 8th. It's Monday, May 8th. Like, it's not just like, well, the US champs is like way out there. It's not that far out. Yeah. Like it's, when is the US champs
it's
exactly?
Like 6-7 weeks. Let's look at it.
Champs 2023 track. I want to know like the exact date because you're looking at this. It's like July 6th to July 9th.
Okay, so we still got 2 months.
But I mean, still at 2 months, you should be ramping up to pretty much be at your peak. I mean, you probably have 1 more month of serious training in your block.
Yeah.
But you should still be pretty fit. And I think this was like a hey, this is going to be a really competitive race for a lot of pros kind of thing. And you know, if you're winning by 3 seconds right now, and frankly, like I don't know if this is Rooks' ceiling. He could go faster.
That's crazy to think about. I mean, yeah. I mean, NCAAs could be like 8:15. Like we could see the winner run that fast. It's going to be.
I feel like it'll be faster. I feel like it will be faster. I feel like Bohr will probably do something.
Yeah. Well, but like NCAAs, I think we're going to see that NCAA like championship record go down again this year.
Oh, yeah. The championship record. Yeah, totally.
But yeah, unbelievable performance. Probably one of the most surprised I've been looking down at a result in the last few weeks. I just did not expect to see something nearly that quick.
Real quick, right now, gun to your head, is you got Rooks or Hamilton? Who are you taking?
I'm going Rooks at this point.
Yeah.
The finishing laps has convinced me. Like he has been able to close. He can close whether or not it's a fast race, a slow race. And I'm going to assume it's going to be quick. And he ran the exact perfect race. Now, it's different when you got a target on your head than when you're kind of racing against pros who they think should be beating you. But he's shown absolutely nothing that would tell me that he can't win.
I would agree. Cool. What's next?
All right, so we got a bunch of other very solid performances, nothing like earth-shattering. Speaking of Duncan Hamilton, let's just cover, he ran 3:36 converted 1,500 meter, which is incredible, shows that he is fit, and like we're talking about, obviously running it at altitude isn't as much of a sign of just pure turnover because there's a lot of strength involved, but that's some pretty good turnover for a steeplechase guy, and again shows why Rooks is going to be in a battle with him because he can run that quick in the 15, he can run that quick in the 5K, and he's obviously great over hurdles. Like it's going to shape up to be a great battle between these two.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're Duncan Hamilton, really the only thing you needed to ask for him was like, hey, you're still fit enough to race him? Oh, you are? Cool. Okay, cool. And that's exactly what this did. Like he didn't need to, like, I don't think Hamilton needs to dip under 8:20 before the regional meets or even the national meet. I don't think he needs to do that to prove that he can still contend for gold. I think this result solidly says that. Now, granted, he is the king of altitude. I don't know if in my memory, if I've ever seen anyone this good at altitude, like maybe ever, actually. Not at the collegiate level. This is pretty impressive. Like 341 at what? How many feet? Like it has to be 5,000, right?
At least, yeah. Like,
I mean, that's pretty insane. I'm trying to look for it right now. I mean,
it's like the converted mark is third in the NCAA.
4,900 feet.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at, obviously, again, this is a converted time, but he is behind only Masoudi and Wascom, like in the 1,500 meter, which is wild. Like when you look at him and then the rest of the guys on this list.
Yeah, he's excellent. Like he's just awesome. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest, but yeah, kudos to him.
Absolutely. Another kind of not too surprising, but good to see that she is maintaining her March form. Claire Seymour, 2 flat, 0.8. Another excellent performance. She's already run 2 flat this year. Just continues to, I mean, I was a little worried we were going to see it, and I think you expressed the same thing, that we might see a dip after she just shot up so suddenly in those like weeks preceding NCAAs and then NCAAs. But she has just converted that momentum into even more great performances. And I think you mentioned it in your first thoughts article. She has established herself as closer to that top trio in the 800 than the rest of the NCAA. Like you could even say that maybe we have a quartet at this point.
And you beat me to it. I was going to say, would you say that she is a legitimate title? How many women do you think can win the national title? Is it 3 or 4?
You see, I just don't. I really struggle to see her win, but I could absolutely see her like beat one of those 3. Like I just, and that's kind of where I like. I think she kind of belongs in the inner circle, but I also don't view her as. I just don't know if her top end is quite as good as those 3.
So how about this? Is it fair? Because I think here's the way I put it. I don't think she's a title favorite. I think there's 3 title favorites. I think
Yeah.
there's 4 title contenders.
Yes, I like that. I think
Okay.
that makes sense because she like if those front 3, none of them have a great day and she has a great day, then she could absolutely win. But I just find it hard to believe that one of them won't have at least a above average to great day. And I think their ceiling is just is just a little bit higher, and that will end up being the difference at NCAAs.
Yeah, I mean, plus, like, I think this race is going to be won. The national title is going to be won in at least 159. It's in
Yes,
Austin,
agreed.
Texas, so like, I don't think you're going to get the same potential like rainy weather that Oregon has had in certain years.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's pretty conducive, like as we've seen at the Texas Relays, and that track's fast for 800-meter runners, and I
Yeah.
think that could benefit. So and I think because that's going to just be like who's just flat out the most fit. It's not that Seymour isn't insanely or like elite fit. It's just like
That front group's on another
yeah,
level.
they're just on another level. Like they're going to probably run 158, I think,
Yeah.
if I had to guess. So, which is such a crazy sentence to be like, well, one of the 3 could run 158. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand right now.
Agreed. All right, let's move to. We saw some quick 1500 meters on the women's side. Izzy Thornton-Bott 408, Mia Barnett 410, Riley Chamberlain 413. Any of these? I mean, these were all pretty much just reruns of. Well, maybe not for Chamberlain as much, but reruns of earlier performances. Good to see. I thought Thornton-Bott the most in particular because she had run 408, but at like was an Australian U20 championship. So good to see her do it here a few months later, run that time. And I mean, she looks like a true contender at this point.
And then
Like,
that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, I mean, like, so right now, let's assume Katelyn. Okay, let's ask 2 different questions here.
yeah.
Let's assume Katelyn Tuohy runs the 1500. What chances would you give Thornton-Bott? What percent chance would you give Thornton-Bott to upset and beat Katelyn Tuohy? Let's start with there.
Like, are we saying her against the field and Tuohy, or like the field, her in the field versus Tuohy?
No, I'm saying like if you're Katelyn
Just straight
Tuohy,
up.
it's just straight up like Izzy Thornton-Bott specifically, and she still has to face Appleton, and she still has to
Yeah.
face like all the Simone Plord and Riggins and so on.
I think she's got like maybe a 15% chance of beating Tuohy.
Okay, would you give her the highest chances of beating Tuohy?
No, I would not.
Who would you give that to?
I would probably give that to Appleton at this point.
Okay, interesting. I love that take. I don't agree with it. Okay, let's say Tuohy doesn't run it. What percent chance do you think Thornton-Bott could win?
I mean, I'm thinking like 30%. I really wouldn't give anyone maybe 25. I don't think I'd give anybody like a greater than like 40% chance at winning. I think it's just going to be a fairly even like
How
amount
many
of the top
women
group.
then? How many women and then in that case do you roughly see as having roughly the same chances
Yeah,
of winning gold as Thornton-Bott?
I think Appleton, Plord if she runs, Barnett, and then
So that was my other question. You think Barnett is a title contender?
I think I yes contender. I would give her a lower odds than the other women that I've
I'm
mentioned.
saying if you're Thornton-Bott, how many people are exactly at your
Oh,
percent chance at
exactly.
winning?
Um,
Roughly.
Appleton and Plord probably.
Okay. That's probably the right answer. Assuming Tuohy doesn't run, of
Yes,
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's like those three probably make up 80% of the title odds. Would be kind of the range that I'm in, and then I think you could talk to me about Barnett, Scheinbecker. Maybe you throw in Riggins as well. But I think I mean, Maya Ramsden could be in there as well. And Olivia Howe, of course. I think Olivia Howe we have to put in that
Yeah, I think
inner
you
circle,
absolutely do. Yeah.
inner circle as well. Yeah. So I completely forgot about her. So yeah, I think it's Howell, Thornton-Bott, Appleton, Plord are your four, and then it's kind of everyone else.
Tui's recent like discussion that like yeah she might consider the 1500 could dramatically change like
Mm-hmm.
what people pursue. Like now, if I'm Plord, I'm sitting there
5K, 5K.
well, what do I choose? Because like it like you don't know what Tui's going to choose. She could still run the 5K,
Yeah.
and if you're Plord, you're like, hey, how you doing, girl? Like, do you want to tell me what you're doing? Like, that'd be great. Because if I'm Plord, I'm like, I can win a national title this year if
Yeah.
I choose the right event.
Right.
Because like she has that flexibility where, and maybe Margot Appleton too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, I still think there's maybe 2 or 3 women still ahead of Appleton in the 5K, but like
Yep.
Plord would realistically have a chance. And this also opens up this idea of like, just you see how this keeps stacking. Parker Volby could win a national title.
Yep. Yep.
Like, why am I the only one freaking out about this? Like,
No, I mean I find it crazy that like she won't do the like I think Tui's gonna do the 5K, and I think like in my heart of hearts that's where I'm at. Maybe like clearly she's thinking about not doing it, or at least potentially not doing it, but I think until I see her entered in the 1500, that's still my default. But yeah, I mean it opens. I mean, no matter what she does, it's going to be opening up the door to somebody to win a title. Like it just depends on which door she's going to open.
yeah, like if I don't know. There's no rule against like giving Katelyn Tuohy a bunch of bribes and being like, tell me, right? Like, I don't think that's against the rules, right? I think you can tell anyone anything
As
now.
long as it's like athlete to athlete, yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
fine.
right. I think it's fine. Don't quote us, by the way. Like don't come
So,
after us legally.
yeah,
That's a disclaimer there. I had to throw that in the bio. Um, I want Wyatt, if Wyatt, when you're listening to this, I want to see if we can get like one of those like super fast like disclaimer videos at like the end of like a legal campaign, like this offer's not valid until like it's like in Virginia, like Oregon, kind of like that stuff, just to like throw that in there. Anyways, okay, we can move off of that. The 1500s. I think we covered Mia Barnett, her 410 in there as
yeah.
well. Where do you want to go next?
Let's quickly talk about someone who also could be a potential steeplechaser, but probably not. Brian Fay, 338 in the 1500 meter. He is great in anything from the 15 to the 5K. I mean, we talked about how it's a pretty good steeplechase field, but he's also like the steeplechase is kind of that perfect in his wheelhouse distance. We've seen him run well in the steeplechase before. Does he decide to dip his toe in those waters despite Rooks running 8:17, despite Duncan Hamilton being there? Or does he try to stick in the 5K where I think he still has a great shot at being extraordinarily competitive? I mean, the 3:38, not surprising at all. Like
No.
we saw what he did in the mile this indoor season, so it's not surprising to see him run 3:38. Good performance. But it does leave the steeplechase door a little more open. I still, though, think he ultimately, I mean, he's still NCAA number 1 in the 5K. And there,
I mean, but how much does that really mean?
I know, but you look at the list of like who, like the top guys aren't scary right now.
And I will say, well, you don't think Dylan Jacobs is still not heavily favored?
Right, yeah, that's fair.
And I will give you credit for this. There was an Instagram post, I think on Colin Solomon's Instagram. Drew Bosley was seen in crutches.
Yeah.
Now we have to reach out. Like we're literally recording this. I have to like reach out and see if we can find any information.
Another disclaimer there.
Yeah. What's that?
Another disclaimer there.
Yeah, like because people are going to be like, well, why didn't you cover it? It's just because like, well, we don't actually know information. I got to reach out to people. See what happens. I don't know. I mean, like if Bosley comes out, like it opens up the door a little bit. Like Young has not been super exciting this year. Robinson hasn't looked super sharp. Hicks is probably at his best in the 10K. I'll give you that. The 5K is more open. So here's what I'm going to ask you. What event choice gives him the best chance for a national title? What event gives him the safest opportunity for an All-American honor? And then what does he actually choose?
I think it's 5K, 5K, 5K. Like
okay.
I mean, the steeplechase, I think you could argue, and I would be open to it for safest, like for All-American. Yeah. But I just think, I mean, there's just not been that rush of guys that are running really well right now in that 5K, like we normally see. And if he's fit and he runs a good race, he's going to be an All-American. Like I think he could. Again, I think he can win a national title in the 5K. Like obviously,
he's certainly talented enough. There's no doubt.
Going up against Dylan Jacobs is going to be tough, but he has as good of a kick as Dylan Jacobs does, and can do it at the end of a fast race. Like he just has to put himself in the position, and he just has not done that yet at NCAA's, which is why he's not going to be the favorite. But like he's shown in regular season meets that he can beat pretty much anybody in this event.
I will say this. Last year, he ran a 1,500 at the Sound Running meet, came back the next 2 weeks, I forget, I think it's next week, and ran the steeplechase as his first time that season. Looks like that could absolutely be what happens again this year, where he runs the steeplechase as part of like some kind of weekend double or weekend triple even. So it's possible. How fast does he need to run in the steeplechase for you to be like, okay, I think he's actually going to run the steeple? Or he should run a steeple.
I mean, if Rooks hadn't just run 8:17, I'd have a much higher answer. But I think he's got to run like 8:25 to 8:29, somewhere in that range. And I'm feeling.
Okay. I would have said like 8:22, 8:23, 8:24.
I don't need him to get that close. Like unless it's like in a race where the winner does run 8:17 and he just gets blown out or something. Then I would have liked to seen him run that like an 8:23. But if he wins a race in 8:27, I think we can start having that conversation a little bit.
Okay, I'll come back to you. It's crazy that like he's your guy and you're like, well, I don't know, but
I like him in the 5K. I think it's more about like I like him in the 5K. The 5K is a little soft this year, and the steeplechase is absolutely not soft. Like, and I just think it's a harder road.
I think that's a great way of putting it. I agree. Okay, is that it? Oh no, we still got a couple here. Yeah.
So I mean, I briefly mentioned Chamberlain's 4:13 in the 1500 when we were talking about Barnett and Thornton-Bott, and then Lexy Halladay running 9:42 in the steeplechase. Really good mark for her. I mean, BYU continues to develop these talents continue to look strong throughout the year. I refuse to be really that surprised by anything that these women are doing. But still, really good mark. This is the third fastest for Halladay, third fastest steeplechase time in the country this year. Really good performance. I'm really curious to see what the women's steeplechase field looks like, because I mean, you got DeLay, you got Thorner, but then it's kind of interesting to see who will be that in that next group. I think Mitchell and Featherstone Ha, Ellis maybe even as well, like, are pushing to put themselves in that position. But
Well, I think
as we said,
McCabe is also in that title
McCabe,
contention.
yes, absolutely, yeah, McCabe as well. She's probably in that top three. It'll just be kind of interesting to see how that all shakes out over the next few weeks when things really start to heat up in that event.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the steeplechase for the women's side. I think we expected it to be like really top heavy just because it ended last year super top heavy.
Yeah.
But I still thought it would be faster than 9:39 is the nation leading time at this point in the season. I just did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was faster last year at this point by significant margins. So like I can't help but think I'm like, okay, yes, there will be people who run faster than Halladay-Lowry's 9:42, right? In the next week or two, but maybe not by a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's going to be a lot of women who do it. And like, I'm now kind of wondering, I'm like, okay, like 9:42. And again, for anyone wondering why these aren't in TFers, it's because the on running track fest, for whatever reason, doesn't meet NCAA specifications. I think due to like the events and number of events that are laid out and participants and yada, yada, yada. I don't know. I was just told it wasn't. But it doesn't count towards NCAA qualification. So Halladay-Lowry is already qualified. She'll be qualified with a 9:49. But 9:42 kind of is like, I think she has to be like an All-American favorite because like she keeps improving. She's had one bad race this entire academic year. She was an cross-country All-American. She's experienced. She's consistent. She's improving. Her range has gotten better. Her only bad race came at the NCAA Indoor Championships, where she was, I think, one of the last seeds. I I don't know. I kind of like her as an All-American.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Brian Clay, and that's really where we saw a lot of our top All-American contenders race. I mean, she was what, fifth in that race, sixth,
Mhm.
yeah, fifth in that race. I mean, that you throw in, obviously there'll be a few more women who weren't in that race that'll be probably contenders, but you add like two or three in there and she's still probably in that top eight at the very minimum. And that's assuming she doesn't improve and beat some of the women that beat her at Brian Clay. So yeah, I think she's right there. I think we will see a lot more sub 950s when conference weekend rolls around, but I struggle to see how many we're going to see below 945.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Like, it's a nice time. It doesn't like really jump off the page. 9:42 in terms of like, oh, super elite contention All American. But like when you really start doing the math and breaking down the possibilities, like not really a whole lot of women who are going to go 9:42 before the national meet. I don't
Yeah.
think. And it's going to happen. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's going to be a ton.
No,
So
I agree. All right. Anything else before we wrap up?
I think that is it. We have got a lot of stuff coming to you on the site. Transfer news, obviously, as people have seen, there's going to be more on the way. We've got that. We're going to do some previews for conference weekend. Please be patient with us. Those entries are usually released like last minute. They're like, hurry, go, preview. It's like, so that's usually like how conference weekend works for us.
Yeah.
There's that. I don't know. I kind of want to. I think I'm going to move one of the Lane 9 episodes onto YouTube soon. So if you're on YouTube, we'll start uploading our Lane 9 episodes there after I think a month or a couple weeks after we upload them on the site. And yeah, there's just always more on the way. Rankings for D3 are coming next week. We've got D1 rankings next week as well. And then we start getting to the postseason, and it gets real interesting. So that's all I have for now. Ben, do you have anything more?
No, I mean, it's crazy that we're already getting to that postseason
Yeah.
time, and we're wrapping up another academic year. Is this our first full academic year since we came back,
Mm,
or no? Is this second? It all blends together.
First full academic year. Yeah, first full academic year since the relaunch. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Wow. Look at this. Who
Look
would
at
have
us.
thunk it?
Who would have thought it beat me to it? All right. Well, that's all I got.
All right. Well, until next week, I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you.